able to address the issue, and we're glad that you showed up tonight to be here. So the first person who signed in is Sandy Klein. Just give us your name and address first.
My name is Sandy Klein, and I live at 4003 April Drive. I'm here to object the proposed multi-retail complex that will be adjacent to my backyard. This devastating blow to my neighborhood occurred on Wednesday, June 21st, when the Planning and Zoning Committee voted to approve the retail business that would put a loading dock a mere 150 feet from my back door. Upon hearing this for the very first time that evening, I can only describe my emotions as they went from shock to feeling physically ill. I kept asking myself, how can this be? How had no one in my neighborhood ever heard about this before this meeting? We all know how bad news travels fast. Well, this news didn't travel at all. I trusted the City of Green to work in our best interest. I believe that the city should be working in collaboration with the businesses and the residents to make a happy balance that works for our city. Over the last few days, I have spent many hours getting the word out about this development, not only in my neighborhood, but also in the City of Green. Every person I spoke to was shocked at this development. I watched homeowners understand, become sympathetic, and finally outraged that the city was allowing this to happen. My goal is not for residents to be hostile towards city officials, but they should be outraged at the process, policies, and procedures in our city government that allows this to happen. I moved to Green 15 years ago with my husband and 3 small children. I have raised my family here, and I can honestly say that Green is our home. The policies and procedures allowed this to happen have failed my family, they failed my neighbors, and they failed my neighborhood. We will be paying the price for a failed system. 150 feet is less than half a football field. That's how close our homes will be to a loading dock, visited by a steady stream of noisy, smelly diesel semis. Can you imagine the aroma of industrial-sized dumpsters full of mountains of grocery and restaurant garbage that close to your home? Can you imagine the voices of dozens of people every night sitting at outdoor restaurant tables, getting louder and louder as they drink beer and wine, and this is where our children are sleeping? I hope that each one of you will begin to work on a solution so that no resident of this city will ever be put into this position again. Finally, I would like to take a moment to thank the mayor for meeting with a group of us in our neighborhood to discuss the situation and to patiently listen. We do appreciate your input.
Thank you, Mrs. Klein. The next person to speak is Jane Weaver. Let's give us your name and address. Welcome.
My name is Jane Weaver at 4013 April Drive. My neighbors and I are here tonight to protest the retail development project on Maslin Road property behind and next to Ritzman Pharmacy. This retail development directly affects 8 homes on April Drive whose backyards will be abutting the development. We know that this project does not come up for council review. However, we do feel that we should inform council members and residents of Green about what is happening in their city. I would like to read portions of the Land Development Code for the City of Green dated November 25th, 2009. Under purpose, it states that, and I quote, "This code is adopted to secure and provide for the City of Green the following objectives. Number 1, to promote the public health, safety, comfort, and welfare of the residents of the City of Green. Number 2, to establish and maintain zoning districts in order to protect the property rights of all individuals by ensuring the compatibility and efficient relationships of uses and practices within districts. Number 5 says to promote orderly, efficient, and appropriate development of the land. And number 14, to preserve the character and quality of residential neighborhoods," unquote. We believe that this proposed development is a betrayal of the above Land Development Code objectives. When we purchased our homes on April Drive, the land behind us was zoned B2 business, which meant office and professional buildings. There were conditional uses for such things as nursing homes, libraries, cemeteries, etc. Retail and restaurants were not permitted. We were told that when a development was going to go in, that the owners of the affected neighboring lots would be notified. We decided that we could live with those conditional uses and purchased our homes. On 2 separate occasions, the residents of Green have voted to prohibit any retail development adjacent to a residential neighborhood. We never dreamed that we would be fighting this issue again. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Mr. Doug Weaver.
Thank you. My name is Doug Weaver. I live at 4013 April Drive, and we've lived there for the past 23 years. On March 23rd, my wife Jane noticed construction vehicles working in the field on Massillon Road directly behind our house. Jane called the planning department and spoke to Mr. Weath. She was told that soil samples were being taken. Jane asked if we would be informed of a sale of the property and if the city would be discussing barriers. She was told only that the lots adjacent to the fields would be notified about developments. She was not advised that plans were already well underway for a full retail development. About 2 weeks ago, we received a memorandum from the Green Planning Department dated June 8th. It was addressed to the contiguous property owners affected by item 1726, TWL Development Site Plan Review B2. This was our first and only notification from the City of Green that anything was going on. We attended the June 20th meeting, interested to know what type of businesses or offices were going to go in. At that meeting, we were astonished to learn the following. TWL Development is planning to put in a strip mall directly abutting our properties. It includes a grocery store, multiple restaurants, including fast food, and other as yet unidentified retail stores, with an outdoor patio located at the back of the property, closest to our residential homes. Loading docks would also be directly behind our properties. When we stated at the meeting we were not notified of the impending development in time to review the details, we were told that we should have been looking at the zoning websites and attending all the zoning meetings. We learned that this planning has been going on for a long time. The architect was presenting the plans that already included changes requested by the zoning committee. The whole development was clearly already a done deal. We asked the zoning commission at the meeting to table the plans for 1 month to give us a chance to review the site map, ask questions, and have our opinions heard. The commission denied us. The commission members did request several minor concessions, such as permitted hours for delivery trucks. They voted on and passed the plan by a vote of 3-2, despite our objections. Sandy Klein and Jane Weaver met with the mayor the following day and discussed our frustrations and the lack of communication between the city and the homeowners. Mr. Weathy was also called into the meeting. Sandy and Jane were told that the zoning commission was within their rights to approve this development. The revised code of 2009 allowed them to put in retail and restaurants as B2 conditional use. The mayor and Mr. Weathy did agree that in the future, homeowners would be notified earlier in the process instead of the 10 days before the meeting, such as we received. Previous developments in Green received coverage in the paper in time for citizens to react and provide their input. The current project seems to have been done in stealth mode. The lack of timely communications from the planning department, council, or any other part of Green government is deeply disappointing. The residents of Green deserve better consideration in these matters that will have continued impact on our daily quality of life and the value of our homes. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Mr. Weaver. So we've gone from Klein to Weaver, back to Klein. So Mr. Klein, welcome.
Michael Klein, 4003 April Drive. I also stand before you to address this planned retail development. and to let you know that the residents of our neighborhood strongly object to the placement of restaurants, a grocery store, and an establishment serving alcohol with an outdoor patio adjacent to our residential community. If you know the history of this land, you will know that the residents of Green have voted down retail development in this area by refusing any zoning changes. This happened when Acme originally proposed to come into Green and build on this property. The residents of April Drive and our neighborhood object to the way this whole project has been handled by the city government. The property owners adjacent to this lot received a letter approximately 2 weeks prior to the meeting that gave very basic facts. It said nothing about retail, and as Doug said at the meeting, this had already been decided, and we were given very little consideration to delay this so that we could come up with our own concerns and questions on the project. We should have been notified earlier. We are learning that this project has been in the works for months, and yet no one gave us any indication of what was happening. At the very least, the property owners along April Drive should have been directly notified further in advance with more details. We asked the PZC to table this issue for a month so that we could have time to review the information. We were denied. This retail development includes an outdoor patio that is approximately 130 feet from my property line. However, at the PZC meeting, another patio expansion request at a bar at the corner of Maslin and Greensburg Roads was denied because of noise concerns. There is one house in that immediate vicinity. Dozens of houses in our neighborhood will hear this patio. I will also have a loading dock 105 feet from my property line. One of my neighbors will have a dumpster 65 feet from their property line. Another neighbor will have a dumpster 75 feet from their property line. Citizens of Green should be able to trust the government to make decisions that protect the quality of life here in Green. It was a mistake to add conditions to the B2 zoning of this property, which essentially opened it up for a variety of undesirable projects. When you have an entire neighborhood blindsided by what is obviously a substantial project, the system in place is broken and must be changed. We would like to see the B2 zoning conditional uses re-examined throughout the city. With this development, not a single building is a B2 permitted purpose. All are conditional use businesses. We would like to see better communication between the Zoning Commission and residents. We understand that everything was done by the book, but the book isn't good enough. This system is broken and it needs to be fixed. In closing, I would like to ask everyone in this room, especially members of City Council, one question. Would you want a grocery store in your backyard? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Next individual who signed in is John Shaw. Mr. Shaw?
Good evening. My name is John Shaw. I live at 4097 High Point Drive, just about a block and a half away from the affected properties. Only 8 families were contacted by the city regarding this issue, even though it has major implications for every citizen in the Green area, in the city of Green right now. Citizens have already voted against having this property used for business retail purposes. The 2004 Long Range Land Use Plan acknowledged this with the following statement, and I quote, "The west side of Maslin Road, north of the town center to Bettler Road, should remain as office use as currently zoned." Now we've learned that the current Green official zoning map that still shows this area to be zoned B2 for professional office, not retail, is only an illusion. The ugly truth is buried among the tens of thousands of words in the updated city charter where the lines between professional office and retail were blurred. Now a simple variance can magically transform professional office into retail with no regard for the impact of the neighborhoods or the quality of those residential neighborhoods. These zoning variances are done in obscure planning meetings that may be open to the public, but which most citizens have little awareness of or time to attend due to their primary duties of earning a living and caring for their families. And so this property west of Maslin Road that the citizens of Green voted against using for retail was granted a variance for a hodgepodge of retail businesses that are totally out of character with the quiet neighborhood they encroach upon. If the citizens of Greene were given the right to vote on this today, I believe they would vote against it again. Because we all know that if this kind of variance can happen here, it can happen to anybody in any residential neighborhood and end up in your backyard also. But because of a small change of wording in the city charter, we didn't get a chance to vote on it. We don't have any say in it. We relied too much on our elected officials not to allow something like this to sneak up on us. Is this the way a progressive, transparent government is supposed to work? There is no valid reason to put noisy retail stores in the backyards of quiet residential neighborhoods. This is a bad plan, and we have no assurance that there aren't more in the works. If it can happen in one neighborhood, it can happen in any neighborhood. With this retail development, the City of Greene's promise to its citizens to preserve the character and quality of residential neighborhoods has been broken. This is nothing less than a betrayal of public trust. The final slap in the face is to hear the City Council and Mayor tell us there is no way to correct this terrible mistake. I assure you, my neighbors on April Drive will be formally requesting that the Zoning Commission reconsider their vote on this matter. Thank you.
The next person who signed in is Carrie Miller.
"20 feet, a request for reconsideration on the use of land in the city of Greene. 20 feet from my property line, there will be a project that I would like to entitle the Trash Dumpster. 20 feet is what will separate my backyard oasis, the place where I like to enjoy time, cookouts, and fun with my family and close friends. 20 feet that my family purchased along wooded lots with many flowering and fruiting trees with beautiful words we enjoy every morning. We understood when purchasing our home, businesses could someday come. That is now. The businesses that we thought would come would have changed. B2, which is supposed to be business offices, health facilities, medical offices, has now changed to become an open restaurant bar, a quick mart, fast food drive-through, and very far from the 9-to-5 office you promised us. In Chapter 1224 of the Code of Greene, under the development review procedures, those voting are encouraged to vote against those properties which the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result. But 20 feet from our homes, we'll have a trash dumpster with the odors of waste, including old food, alcohol, and trash. With it will come large rodents, and we will see a large driveway for semi-trucks with their backup beeping to deliver at all hours of the day or night, or perhaps their idling of their diesel engines with noxious fumes while they wait to deliver at the set appropriate time. The required lighting for our safety will be bright all hours of the day at night. We will be near unsafe conditions of outdoor drinking and smoking at the bar. I do have many questions. What is the current recompense for notifying residents the way the City of Greene requires, when only 3 of the 7 requirements of the code were met? Our neighbors were also boldly informed during the meeting that all information is online and accessible for everyone. This does not take into account all of the residents of Greene. My 86-year-old friend does not have such access to see these things online. Her ability to obtain information is not less worthy than those of us who can. To be fair to all, the notification should be done as it's written in our code, or even better communication. We are a community with friends, as close as family, and we should work as such. What is the recompense for these buildings to comply with their noise and other ordinances? I'm concerned these 8 homes will now have the duty and burden to notify city and local authorities of each and every offense. Is it every establishment in the city of Greene for each offense? Fined for each offense that a concerned resident brings forward, and who decides that fine? Is there a time limit when the Board of Zoning can change their minds and re-vote? Will they then be required to present a list of reasons for their change in vote? My last question is to ask, what constitutes a vote from both the Board of Zoning alone or one that requires a vote from City Council? Please remember, our backyard oasis that we just mentioned, these children have homes, these yards are currently safe, they're being played in and enjoyed. Our properties will suffer detriment, and this will change and alter the essential character of our adjoining properties. We have all come to have our voices heard for the entire city of Greene and every person. We would just like that everyone else's backyard oasis stays nice for the years to come. Thank you for your service to our city.
Thank you. We're going to take the next one out of order so we can have all the folks who want to address this issue heard together. The final person to sign in to address this issue is Andy Platt.
Hi, I'm Andy Platt, and my wife Linda and I live at 4096 High Point Drive, 1 block away from April Drive, and we too object to the proposed retail development on Maslin that abuts April Drive. The reason for us coming forward tonight, we don't live on April Drive, but we think this is something that negatively affects the character and quality of the entire neighborhood, not just the property owners who are going to be severely impacted. We think the entire neighborhood, April Drive, High Point Drive, Green Ridge, July, et cetera, that all residents of that community will be negatively impacted. We built our home in 1990, and we've worked with the city very successfully through other retail proposals in the 90s when Acme was first proposed. We were against that. The city listened. We thank you for that. When this beautiful building was built and the rest of this beautiful complex that is also right next to our development was in process, we had months of planning with the city to work through acceptable conditions of the building of this structure. We applaud that. We thank our leaders at that time for listening to us and being concerned with our welfare. That's why it's shocking and surprising to us right now that this has hit us in the face with minimal notice and not a lot of information. My wife and I object to this proposed retail establishment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next individual who signed in is Mr. Steve Braswell.
Steve Braswell, 1207 Peachwood Way. Surprised I'm going to talk on the topic of the night, too. It was interesting to read in the attached materials for the Bayside Group development that they'd done a market study for professional office space in Greene and had concluded essentially that there was no market because the vacancy rates were so high. I think that just because a developer might come to you and whine that they can't do a profitable office development on a place that's zoned for office development is no reason to turn around and give them variances to do retail. If they can't make it profitable there, tough luck. That's their hard luck. It's no reason to change the rules and affect all the people. I would also note that this would probably be, in the same vein, the number of other developments that are going in that are not office space, but that they're tending to do things that are profitable, in particular, a lot of the senior-oriented development. We heard some pretty frightening numbers from the fire department tonight about the rise in EMT runs. I think everybody would agree that certainly there's a correlation and probably a causation between the increasing age of the population of Greene and the number of runs. These developers are essentially taking these external costs associated with all these developments, and they're putting the costs on the back of us, the taxpayers. I think it really is up to you guys to figure out how to, protect us from these externalities of these costs that they're passing along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. The final person who signed in tonight is Terry Hunt.